Okay, so let's get right to it. This is pretty big news. It just happened today, and what's happening is the inspector general, the head attorney, basically the person that heads up the full investigative unit of the Social Security Administration's like fraud review unit or investigating people. That chief, the chief of like the secret police that go and like watch you as a disabled person, follow up to see if you're truly disabled. The person who is kind of like the head attorney-ish person on behalf of the Social Security Commissioner, that person, a Trump holdover, was basically going through a lot of crap and has decided to go ahead and resign. Yeah, I think it was that, or I think she was going to get fired by Biden. I'm not sure what the deal is. Let's read through it so you understand. First, I'm going to start off with what happened to her, and then we're going to go into basically, how she's withdrawing, how she's resigning. First article, trouble at the Social Security Administration watchdog Inspector General Ennis is failing the essential duties of her mission, July 31st, 2023. It's by Faith Williams. In March of 2023, the Project on Government Oversight, POGO, called for President Joe Biden to remove Social Security Administration Inspector General Gail Ennis for failing the essential duties of her mission. The office Ennis oversees has issued crushing fines to elderly people with disabilities, and those already struggling to make ends meet, and allegedly retaliating against whistleblowers alongside other misconduct and mismanagement. However, more than 4 months after Pogo's letter, Ennis is still at her post, and reports of whistleblower retaliation continue against a backdrop of dysfunction. Remember, this is the group that has the investigators that basically, review you to see if you're truly disabled. They'll show up on your street, they'll knock on your door. A failure to address these many issues is an ongoing threat to the nation's system of oversight, and Inspector General must adhere to the highest ethical principles. President Biden must remove Ennis from power. Further, Congress needs to better protect whistleblowers and support inspector generals by making it easier for them to report on waste, fraud, and abuse of power. Okay. All right, so here's what happened. In May of 2022, the Washington Post veteran reporter Lisa Rain published the first of several articles exposing the mismanagement of an anti-fraud program housed at the Social Security Administration's office. Okay. Specifically the Office of Inspector General. Rain focused on the administration's civil monetary penalty program, which levies fines to recoup government money after someone has received improper disability benefits. Basically, an overpayment. Like if you're ever wondering, like who's overseeing the overpayments, this is the group that oversees them. They're called OIG. They're the attorneys and investigators on behalf of the SSA. They're very high up in the system. They're like a special review group. And the person in charge of that whole group for the past 5 years has been Gail Ennis, who's a holdover from the Trump era, who just resigned because Biden was probably about to fire her. We don't know, but I think that's what was going on. Since the inception of the program in 1995, attorneys at the Social Security Administration considered the financial state, age, and other mitigating factors of those who had received overpayments when assessing fines. A few years ago, however, that changed, and two whistleblowers, Jocelyn Funey and Deborah Shaw, raised the alarm about the change in protocol and the exorbitant fines being levied against 83 people who could least afford to pay them. But increased penalties were not the only shift. The Social Security Administration's chief counsel also changed the policy so staff no longer assessed an individual's financial state before calculating the fines, which is ridiculous because if a poor person is poor, they don't have money for big fines. You got to basically figure out another way for them to pay off a lesser amount. A total of less than 700,000 fines levied in 2017 ballooned to 11.5 million over a 7-month period ending in mid-2019. And it's unclear if that figure represents the total scope of the issue. So $700,000 in fines ballooned, like, Gail Ennis's group was acting like little Jimmy's, loan system. Little Jimmy, I need a loan. All right, well, you're going to owe us a shitload of money at the end of this. You understand that, right? That's what we got here. $700,000 ballooned 2-year period into $11.5 million. This is not good. It's not good math for Gail Ennis, I will admit. These penalties were cruel and disproportionate. That's a good way to describe it. Those facing fines were typically low-income people, elderly people, or those with a disability, and the changes to this program were devastating. Gail Deckman shared her story with the Washington Post, and it illustrates the impact these fines had on those just trying to get by. Deckman continued to receive Social Security disability benefits for 4 years after her partner died from cancer. She did not realize the error and was hit with a fine of nearly $120,000, roughly 3 times the amount of what she received by mistake. Now, to be fair, you don't get the check of the person that you were living with when they pass away. You might get survivor's benefits, but you don't get their check. I would have to say most people know that. You have to wonder, what was this person's intent? So in that situation, I mean, maybe some of you guys be like, oh, I just keep that in the check of this other person even after they die. I don't think that. No, most people would not make that mistake. Most people know, when that person passes away, that ends their Social Security check, right? All right. So with that said, she does not have the money to repay the fine, so Social Security is garnishing what she was going to receive upon retirement. And that she continues to work at her minimum wage job and will not be able to retire until she is age 83 in 2032. You know what's funny about this is that people give a shit about elderly people, right? They do. They really care when it comes to this situation. But when it comes to student loans being massively overcharged, when the student loan used to be 10,000 and now it's 50,000, when the student loan used to be 15,000 and now it's 100,000, people just don't care about those kids. They just don't care about all the professionals that save their lives and how they're drowning in student loans. Like doctors, lawyers, accountants, pretty much people that keep you moving in the right direction. But I know how most people feel with that. They say, F them, F them. But when it comes to elderly people, oh, we got to carry them on the pillow. It's interesting. You ever think about that? Think about that. While these penalties were legal, they were also cruel and disproportionate, like student loans. Those facing fines were typically low-income people, elderly people, or those with a disability, and the changes to this program were devastating. In addition to mishandling the anti-fraud program, NS's office faced other issues under her tenure as Inspector General. I bet they're going to go into, because she squashed, or allegedly squashed these whistleblowers. I mean, I read some of the stories, and I didn't do videos on it because she was still the current Inspector General. And you got to be careful with that stuff. But she squashed some of these whistleblowers. Attorneys trying to protect the integrity of the program faced ongoing, here you go, whistleblower retaliation. That's not good. You don't want that in the government. They're trying to stamp that out of the private industry. All right, so which they told Pogo continues to this day. Dozens of auditors, investigators, and other staff have quit or retired, many indicating frustration with the office's leadership. During the pandemic, NS monitored investigators' computers and disciplined or terminated several agents for being away from their desks, even though that typical duration occurs during an investigation. This tactic fueled a no-confidence vote from the Federal Law Enforcement Officers Association. In 2022, employees ranked the OIG 431 out of 432 subcomponents of the federal government, assigning particularly low scores in categories related to effective leadership. So they were second to last out of all government, components or subcomponents, like places to work. OIG at the SSA was shittiest to none but one. There was only one worse than them. The pace of audits and reports issued by the office has dramatically slowed, and while the number of reports is not a proxy for the overall quality of oversight, it's reasonable to expect staff departures to impact the office's ability to perform meaningful oversight. Yeah, no shit. People are unhappy if you're constantly putting them in a spot, putting them in a bind, putting them in a compressor. In the aftermath of Rain's report, right, that was the news station, the Social Security IG office found itself at the center of multiple investigations, and the problematic fines program was paused. In May 2022, the acting Social Security Commissioner announced a full investigation, and that was Commissioner Kijikazi. And shortly after, the Council of the Inspector General on Integrity and Efficiencies, the CIGIE, Integrity Committee also opened a probe which prompted comment from Biden's administration encouraging the body to move swiftly. Because Biden doesn't want this. Biden doesn't want a Trump appointee in there. He doesn't want that. He doesn't want people to be unhappy with getting these giant overpayments because that just looks bad while he's president. He don't want any of it. So he said, fix it and fix it swiftly. I'm talking Taylor Swiftly. Here we go. The Office of Special Counsel is also investigating claims of whistleblower retaliation. Also in 2022, the Office of Personnel Management audited the IG's office's workforce planning strategy, which raised concerns about staff departure and is currently digging more deeply into NS's hiring practices. In December of 2022, the Senate Finance Committee announced its own bipartisan investigation into the watchdog office over fears that mismanagement may be impeding its ability to perform oversight. Now, I remember Senator Ron Wyden coming out. He was pissed. He was super pissed. Senator Ron Wyden, Democrat Oregon, chair of the Senate Finance Committee, sent a letter to Ennis in July 2023 expressing his ongoing concerns about her performance. It is worth noting that Inspector General Ennis is a member of the CIGIE's Integrity Committee, one of the bodies reportedly investigating her office. When asked if Ennis had recused herself from the probe, CIGIE provided Pogo the following statement. While CIGIE cannot confirm or deny that IG Ennis has recused herself from an investigation or that she is the subject of an investigation, the IC adheres to a policy of transparency and recusal as appropriate to mitigate the existence of or appearance of conflicts of interest. The IC's rules on recusal are detailed in Section 3.K point of its policies and procedures. So in other words, they sent a sassy comment to people that are above her. And when they did that, they got some angry responses from senators, House reps. Biden was watching this thing thinking, I got to get rid of this person. All right. We assume. Prima facie retaliation. The Social Security Inspector General's office would have continued to levy outrageous fines on those least able to pay it, if not for two brave whistleblowers. Jocelyn, wait and see, hear what happened to those two. Jocelyn Funey and Deborah Shaw, who stated they continue to experience retaliation at the hands of IG Ennis. This retaliation has impacted their lives financially, emotionally, and professionally. Remember we just did that video on stress? Remember? These two had a lot of stress. In 2019, Funey raised, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Funey, I'm not sure. Maybe she'll call me and let me know. Funey raised concerns to Ennis about the civil monetary program, which she helped oversee as Assistant Inspector General. So remember, she was up there, right? Assistant Inspector General. She was up there. Like the whistleblower was up there. Shaw, a veteran attorney in the program, also raised her concerns to the IG. A few months later, Shaw and Funey were escorted out of OIG headquarters. And after that, Funey was fired and Shaw was demoted. Both appealed their cases to the Merit Systems Protection Board, which protects federal employees against prohibited personnel practices, including whistleblower retaliation. The Office of Special Counsel, it gets saucier, which investigates complaints of retaliation against whistleblowers, has also opened an investigation, which then we got to wonder, is Gail Ennis on the board of it? In May 2022, an administrative law judge with the Merit Systems Protection Board, MSPB, ruled that Shaw had been the victim of prima facie whistleblower retaliation by the OIG. Prima facie, Latin for it is surely present. It is absolutely certainly this thing that we think it is. Prima facie. I mean, that's not the actual Latin translation, but you got it. The judge ordered the agency to reinstate her to her previous position and restore her back pay and benefits. However, the Inspector General's office has appealed the ruling. They're like, nah, I'm going to fire this lady. She whistleblew on us. She's a tattletale. And in our system of OIG that investigates disabled people to see if they're really disabled, we're going to go ahead and appeal it and see if we can get her fired again. Here we go. The office's chief counsel, Mitchell Murray, is responsible for the appeal, and she is also Shaw's second-line supervisor and coordinator of the agency's whistleblower protection program. So it's like the people overseeing the process are way too connected to the process. Like you're going to get a bias situation no matter what you do. The appeal means that much of this remedy has been put on hold until Shaw's case is heard, which could take years, as the MSPB is facing a huge appeals backlog because a huge amount of employees are pissed, especially with the SSA. The SSA is not doing well with employment right now. You guys know that. Shaw and Funey, here's a quote, have paid a high price for exposing waste, fraud, and abuse of the Social Security Administration. They have still not been made whole. Have you guys noticed that the government is not so great at dealing with whistleblowers? Like, you remember those guys that showed us what the government was doing, how they were massively, listening in on our phone calls, scanning and taking all of our emails and, basically able to, do all of these incredible technological feats that violate all of our privacy constitutional rights. Remember those people and how they now live in Russia because Russia is safer than America? Remember those people? Yeah. Shaw reported that since returning to work, she has been denied projects in her area of expertise and forced to do non-legal busy work, and that her colleagues were instructed to document anything she said related to her case and report it to management. Further, in a twist out of a spy thriller. Shaw learned that a file she was accused of losing was anonymously left in the mailbox of another office within the OIG. She was never officially told of its return, despite it being at the heart of one of the charges leveled against her. So essentially what you have is an agency that is prima facie acting like shitty bosses who are effing over employees instead of doing what their job is, which is to basically make sure the program runs appropriately. That's if you want to summarize it, that's what happened. Like Shaw, Funi had to finance her own case to the MSPB. She settled with Ennis's office as her legal bills accumulated. When Funi returned to work in December 2021, she was not given a performance plan for more than 7 months. She said in the plan she eventually received did not include senior executive level work. She continues to be the target of retaliation and is shut out of meaningful work she did prior to the blowing of the whistle. The OSC investigations looked at retaliation against Funi are ongoing, and she has also filed a case with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the EEOC. You might see this person actually take over as the new person that heads up literally OIG, the Office of Inspector. You never know. This person could become the new OIG person. Shaw and Funi have paid a high price for exposing waste, fraud, and abuse of the Social Security Administration. They have still not been made whole, where still their expertise is underscore that even when the whistleblowers reach a favorable outcome in their initial case, they can remain vulnerable back with their agency. Okay. It's also worth noting that the whistleblower's retaliation within an office of the Inspector General is particularly grievous, as one of the Inspector General's most important jobs is to protect government whistleblowers against retaliation. Now, here's the thing. There were a bunch of reports that went against them. They're looking at what necessary changes needed to be made, right? And Ron Wyden sent a bunch of stuff. He was super pissed as a senator. He said, you get on this, you fix this. She didn't respond well to his office. Here's the current stat. May 31st, 2024, today, 6:57 p.m. Lisa Rain pops up again. Interesting. I think so. Because, remember, she's getting the tea straight from OIG. That's what's happening here. Lisa Rain, when they got tea at OIG, they sent it right over to her, right? Washington Post. Embattled Social Security watchdog to resign after tumultuous tenure. Social Security Inspector General Gail Ennis told staff she's resigning, closing a tumultuous 5-year tenure as chief watchdog for the agency. The Social Security Administration's Inspector General is resigning after 5 tumultuous years, capped by a new draft report by an independent watchdog group that found she tried to obstruct the largest of multiple investigations into her office. So now you've got obstruction of justice so that they can investigate the group that's supposed to be in charge of investigating you. So much saucy, so much tea. Gail Ennis, a Trump administration appointee who took office in January 2019, announced her departure in an email to her staff of 500 people earlier Friday. Bipartisan pressure had been building in Congress for President Biden to fire her after reports of falling productivity and morale, complaints of whistleblower retaliation, and blowback from her handling of an anti-fraud program run by her office, which is charged with oversight of the agency that distributes retirement benefits to 69 million Americans and monthly disability checks to about 15 million others. So if you're wondering if that program was doing things a little bit underhandedly when it comes to people being investigated for receiving benefits that maybe they shouldn't, this is why. Okay. A spokesman for Ennis said the White House had no role in her decision to resign effective June 29th. I mean, I think that's total and complete bull. Like, here's the thing. Biden's ramping up for another 4 years. He doesn't want any Trump appointees left in there. You saw what he did to Commissioner Saul. He fired him and the guy right below him. Toot sweet. He put in Commissioner Kijikazi. So I don't believe that for 1 second. I bet the White House had been talking with the new commissioner, Commissioner Martin O'Malley. I bet the White House had been talking about these oversight groups, and they were formulating a plan to figure out what they were going to do to make it harder for her, get rid of her, whatever. Now, they're saying they didn't have anything, no hand in it. But to be fair, it is the White House's job to oversee the top people of each agency, which, just to be fair, the Office of Inspector General, the Inspector General is one of those top executive people. They're real close to the commissioner of the SSA. So, like, when they're like, well, we didn't have anything to do with it. Well, then, what were you not doing your job? as a White House, overseeing the top executives of these agencies? What, were you not? All right. Michelle Anderson, the assistant inspector for audits and one of NS's top-ranking deputies, will serve as acting inspector general until the White House nominates a permanent replacement. So that's interesting. I mean, keep in mind, let's go back over here. We want to look out for basically the following names. We want to look out for Funey, Shaw Funey, and we want to look out for where's the other one here? The other person. Keep in mind, it's super late. I got to find it real quick. Hold on. We want to find Shaw and Funey. Okay, so those are the two names we want to look for because those are the two that got screwed over in this. Okay. In her resignation email, Ennis called the Inspector General's office a vibrant organization that has become a leader in the watchdog community during her tenure. I don't know if I'd use the word vibrant. I would use spy. I would use somewhat unnatural. I would use scary. I would use 500-pound gorilla. I would use those phrases to describe OIG, but vibrant organization, I don't think I would call the spies through the SSA vibrant in that regard. And if anything, they would be like the shadows in the back rooms, in the back offices of the SSA. Ennis's departure comes as she faced a second critical finding from a committee of fellow federal watchdogs known as the Council of the Inspector General on Integrity and Efficiency, which is continuing a broad investigation of her office. Now that she's out, she's got to worry because they're gonna find stuff. That inquiry began after the Washington Post report was put up in March. Justice Department Inspector General Michael Horowitz, whose office is conducting the broader investigation to CIGIE, found that Ennis's office failed to properly notify some poor and disabled Americans before levying the fines, violating the rights to due process. Horowitz then notified CIGIE of new findings that Ennis had attempted to obstruct his investigation. And I did a video on this before. The letters that she sent back to them when they requested information were saucy, sassy, and dicky. They were not good. They were like, we don't have to report to you, blah, 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 blah. They were that kind of shit. You don't send that to the Chief Justice Department Inspector General. You don't send letters to that effect to that person. Okay. If he wants to know, he's going to find out. All right. Failing to cooperate with investigators, withholding documents, and telling some of her staff not to sit for interviews, according to two people familiar with this new draft report who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss the confidential findings. Ennis received a draft of that report in May. People familiar with the process said it has not been made public. Oh, that is going to be so. We're going to read that one. We're gonna get some paninis, gonna lay that shit out on the desk, and we're gonna read through that one. Okay. Ennis received a draft in May, so she knew the writing was on the wall, right? Because we are literally at the end of May. So she knew something was coming. It's June 1st right now, but she knew something was coming. Okay. So bottom line, Ennis's spokesman did not directly respond to the draft's report findings. The spokesman said her resignation was not prompted by the draft report. How would it not be? It's like, you ever notice with government people, it's like whatever they say to you is not what actually happened. Whatever they say to you is not what really happened. I don't think so. Senate Finance Committee Chairman Ron Wyden, remember the senator who got pissy, very pissy, told Biden in February that he had lost confidence in Ennis, citing numerous performance issues in a new statement on Friday. He praised her resignation. Under her leadership, the Inspector General's Office of Social Security has fallen into disarray, plagued by complaints of hostile work environment, retaliation against whistleblowers, abysmal staff morale ratings, and falling productivity. All right, so bottom line is this. Employer morale, right? Oh, so here's the new one. Here's the new, because remember, this one was, I think, 2022, 2023. This one's 2023, 2024. Employee morale hit a new low point, or a low point in annual surveys, the federal workforce, with the Inspector General's office ranking. All right, so now she's not second worst in the nation. She's better than second worst. 430 out of 459 small agencies that fall under larger federal departments in 2023. Because remember, it falls under the SSA. OIG under the SSA. It's like a smaller agency in a bigger agency. Okay, so that's 2023. So that must have been 2022 from the prior article. In 2022, Ennis's spokesman attributed the decline to normal attrition. Ennis at the time defended her efforts to boost employee morale. The anti-fraud program is still being investigated by the Social Security Administration, Wyden's office, and the Office of Special Counsel. So we will at some point get that report. Now, why is this important, relevant, and super dupe needing for you to know? Okay. We don't know what the shape of future investigators, what it's going to look like when they want to investigate people, thinking that they might be fraudulent or potentially committing fraud as a person receiving benefits. Sometimes fraud has nothing to do with disability benefits. A big fraud thing where we see people getting arrested, and because remember, there's three types: administrative punishment, civil punishment, and criminal punishment. But the one where we see people getting like arrested, or at least civil punishments, are where like their parent will pass away and they'll keep getting that check, and they'll keep making intentional statements and yada yada, saying, "Oh, this person's still alive. Send me the retirement check." Right. So in that regard, that's the one that they usually get in trouble with. That they publish a lot of articles where this person's being arrested, that person's getting a civil fine, blah blah blah. The point is, we don't know what the new shape of OIG is going to be. I figured with Biden getting in that the amount of investigations were not going to be as aggressive or hostile. It hasn't been that because the Trump appointee stayed in. And so there were some pretty saucy investigations that occurred. Some of them equated to cases that we actually covered on this channel. With that said, I will cover that in the future. Please remember to like and subscribe. We have one last video for tonight, and then I've got to go to bed, and I'm not waking up early tomorrow. One last video where we're going to be going over specifically where there are so many fewer people applying for disability benefits than before. It is diving. It is just diving downward, the amount of people that are applying for disability benefits. All right. With that said, I will catch you guys a little bit later. Please remember to like and subscribe. Head over to Google and type in disability resolution if this video helped in any way. Throw some stars up on the board. I always appreciate them. Please remember to relax. Have a wonderful night. I go live on Tuesdays and Thursdays at night. If you need more time with me, where you need me to go over a complex legal situation, that's fine. No biggie. You can go ahead and hire me for an hour. The little mini contract is in the bio below. I'll catch you a little bit later, and I will see you in about 5 to 10 minutes, and we'll get that last video going. Thanks so much. All right. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.